I get it. People don't like to hear that you're living in the last days. There's two types of people: those who just don't believe it. They don't believe in any of the spiritual side of life, and those that get too obsessed with it. On the other hand, but we can all agree that you're living in the last days of freedom, the last days of democracy, the last days of liberty, the last days of self-determination, the last days of freedom of thought, the last days maybe of freedom of movement, last days of self-protection, last days of wealth and prosperity and security. All these things we're living in the last days. You only have to look around at what happened during the pandemic and the riots. And now we have an out of control border, and we have a group of people running our country that are on a deadlocked into a collision course with Russia for a war from which no one will win, and we will all be destroyed over Ukraine. Now, I think Russia's terrible for what they've done to Ukrainians, but you have to be practical minded. Should the entire world, should you and I burn? Should every Russian burn? Should every Ukrainian burn? Because Putin grabbed some territory that he had no right to grab, I agree. But the West antagonized him too. There's not a lot of good people in this war. But that's why I keep telling you, you're living in the last days of a lot of things. So you should enjoy what you have now, because future generations certainly will not have what we had. There's no way. There's no way they're going to have what we had. You're in the last days of America. That's a guarantee. And that's why I tell people, if you're looking around, like, how do I navigate this? One option, not the only option, but one option is, I tell people, look at the Book of Mormon, because it was written or given or transcribed or transmitted to an American, an early American, Joseph Smith. I understand all of the problems that Joseph Smith has with polygamy. I don't excuse any of it. I'm just telling you like it is. But in the pages of the Book of Mormon, whether you believe it's fact or fiction, doesn't matter. It's definitely prophecy, no doubt about it. That's how I tell people to look at the Book of Mormon, as a book of prophecy. You can argue that it's fiction, that Joseph Smith made it completely up, or you can argue that he actually had a revelation, he was actually given the plates by the angel Moroni. At the end of the day, you have to ask, how do I use the Book of Mormon? How do I use this tool to navigate these last days? Because like we just went through, you're definitely in the last days of freedom of speech and freedom of thought. And the Book of Mormon, if you read it as a book of prophecy, just for a second, think of it as a book of prophecy, you'll see what I'm getting at. You'll see the Gatian and robbers. You'll see the secret combinations. You'll see the conspiracy against religious and spiritual people. You'll see how the Nephite civilization was destroyed. You'll see how the Nephite civilization tried to preserve what was the essence of itself to pass on to future generations. You'll see in the war chapters, which a lot of people don't get, you'll see in the war chapters what people in the future in this country will probably go through and how to ultimately defend themselves. The Book of Mormon has all that in there. It's just that people don't get it. So that's why I advise you to look at it, or at least have it on hand in a paper format, not just digital, because you don't know what will happen in the future. And you should start studying it as a book of prophecy. All right. Again, we can fight all day whether it's real, if the Nephite civilization existed in the Americas or it never existed. But one thing we know is the book exists, and in my opinion, it's a book of prophecy that can help you in these latter days that we're all facing, especially with a war with Russia pending. You need to have a guidebook that can help you through these last days. And that's why I think the Book of Mormon was created 2 centuries ago for our time, to help us navigate these dark times. Take care. Jesus is your answer and my answer. We all know that.